I have a 22-year-old client who is a graduate student in advanced mathematics at a top university. He came to me and he said he has an anger management problem and he'd like to work on it and overcome his anger. I said, okay, give me an example of an anger management moment. He said, I went to Caesar's restaurant at 8:50 p.m. on a Tuesday night, and I asked for a sandwich and a salad. The girl at the counter said, I'm sorry, we close at 9 o'clock. He said, well, that's why I'm here. It's 10 to 9, and I'd like to have a sandwich and a salad. She said, I'm sorry, we close at 9 o'clock. He said, well, that's why I'm here. I arranged my evening study schedule to be here at 8:50 to be able to get a sandwich because I see you close at 9. So I came at 10 to 9. She said, well, our kitchen closes at 8:45. That's why I can't take your order. He said, rising in anger within him, he said, well, it doesn't say that anywhere here on your sign, doesn't say that on your store, doesn't say that on your website. It says you close at 9. So I'm coming here at 10 to 9 to get a sandwich so I can study the rest of the night. She said, I'm sorry, I can't help you. And she was closing the kitchen to go home. He said, I was livid. Everything else was closed. I'm in a university town. I can't get a sandwich. I was starving. And this girl says to me, we close at 9, but it's 10 to 9. He said, I felt the thermometer of anger rising within me, about to explode. And I got home afterwards, and I was very upset with myself. I felt very guilty because I was really raising my voice at this young girl who was probably a student at my university because I wanted a sandwich and she wouldn't give it to me. I said, okay, you're a math student. He said, yeah. I said, let's use a math model. Let's draw an X and a Y axis on a graph. I said, okay, take out a piece of paper, take out a graph paper, and draw an X axis and a Y axis. I said, okay, he did. And he drew an X axis. I said, on the X axis, instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, on the X axis, write down different places that you go to during your day. So he wrote, the first one would be college. The second, his apartment. The third, the gym. The fourth, sometimes going home for Thanksgiving and Christmas. And he wrote those on the X axis. These are the places he would frequent. And he would add a fifth one called Caesar's restaurant or other restaurants in the area. I said, on the Y axis, I want you to write down different people you encounter during your day. Professor, roommate, friends, persons at the gym, parents when you call them, and people at the restaurant, at Caesar's restaurant, when you ask for a salad. So here we have a graph, X, places, Y, people. I said, when you encounter people at these places, I want you to plot on the graph on the X, Y axis, X, places, Y, people, the emotion you felt. She said, okay, well, here is Caesar's restaurant. Here is girl at Caesar's restaurant. So when you plot it over here on the graph, the XY axis over here, you write the emotion angry, very angry. I said, okay, good. I asked him, what are these axes, the X and Y, referred to in mathematical terms? He said, this is called the first dimension, and this is called the second dimension. I said, isn't there also a third dimension? He said, yes. The third dimension is the Z dimension. That's above the XY. X, Y, and the third dimension, because we are three-dimensional. We live in a three-dimensional world. First dimension, second dimension, third dimension. This is the Z dimension. It's like a drone floating above the XY axis. I said, okay, imagine you're in the Z dimension and you're floating above this scene where you're angry over here at Caesar's restaurant, meeting this girl at the XY axis. but you're not in it. You're not in the emotional space right now. You're not in the XY graph, and you're above the XY dimension, floating above it in this Z dimension called bandwidth, above this scene. To look down at this scene, what does the bandwidth self or the Z self say to yourself when you are feeling angry? You look down. I said, here's the bandwidth up here. It's up here. Looking down at the emotions, and the emotions are here in the heart. Look down and say, what would you say? What would your bandwidth, the Z self, say to the XY emotional self? He said, she probably has a life besides Caesar's restaurant. She's probably a student. She's probably not married to Caesar's restaurant. And she also wants to go home to study. So when I look down from the Z dimension, look down and say, maybe I'll try to make myself something else to eat or find some other restaurant to go to. And his anger calmed down. When you go to the Z dimension, you go to the higher dimension of self, the higher self. You access your higher view of self, your higher noble self. Look down at your emotional self, called the bandwidth self. Then you could get a perspective on the anger and control it. I said, what is the bandwidth? What is the description of your true identity? If you think about your conscious identity, who are you? He said, I am a family person, family-oriented. I am empathic, sensitive, spiritual. I said, okay, access the family-oriented, empathic, spiritual, sensitive part of yourself, the bandwidth self, the true self, and look down at your XY self. Breathe, look down at his inner self, and said, I think I can see a different perspective now by accessing my Z dimension. I said, in mathematical terms, what is the Z dimension called? This is the first dimension. This is the second dimension. He said, the third dimension, the Z dimension, is called reality. This is subjective. I subjectively see this girl stopping me from getting my sandwich and getting my hunger abated. But if I go to my Z dimension, to reality, and I see the bigger picture, and I access my higher self from my bandwidth, my true identity, my conscious self, then I gain a sense of reality, and I can see the bigger picture, calm down, and then I can calm down my anger and choose a process of anger management. There are three ways in which we can access the bandwidth to be able to rise above our anger, rise above our frustration, rise above our anxiety, whatever emotion we're feeling in the XY dimension. Three ways to access the bandwidth. Number one, it's called the Wheel of Strengths. And it's divided up into 6 sections. We have here your intellectual self. We have here your social skills, your personality or character, your spiritual self, your family background self, how you contribute to family, and your personal growth self. So draw this circle, divide it up into 6 sections, and you can find this actual design on my website, www.yisroelroll.com, YISROELROLL.com, and go to psychotherapy, and under psychotherapy, find the Wheel of Strength. You can download it there, or draw a circle on your page and do it now. And in it, I want you to write down 2 strengths you have under each section: intellect, social skills, personality, spirituality, family, and personal growth. Now, my client, the mathematician, wrote down the following: intellect, analytical, diagnostic, social skills, friendly and warm, character, empathic, sensitive, spiritual, faith-based, and believing in a higher power, family, family contributor, and getting along well with siblings and parents, personal growth, working on anger management. I said, okay, take this overview and write down an identity statement and place it here in the bandwidth. And he took his identity statement from the Wheel of Strengths and wrote it here in the bandwidth. This is his conscious identity. And he wrote, I am an empathic, sensitive, family-oriented, spiritual, giving person. He wrote it here. I said, now, when you have an anger moment and you draw every day this XY axis, and there's going to be every single day an emotional moment where you're going to, in the places you go to on the x-axis, you'll meet people which are going to make you angry, upset, frustrated, hurt. You're going to have an emotional response in the XY, first dimension, second dimension on the graph of life. I want you to be able to go up to the Z dimension, the reality dimension, look down at yourself from this mode and ask yourself, as an empathic, sensitive, caring, spiritual, giving person who's family oriented, what would I say to myself when I am in this emotional state? He said, access your higher self, access your empathy, your sensitivity, your caring, slow down and calm yourself down. And this is a way to self-monitor to overcome anger management. That's the first step. The second way to access your bandwidth and to rise above your emotional self in your XY axis is to draw this stick figure. Circle, body, arms, legs, and a heart. In the head, write down your statement, your identity statement. And he wrote down, I am an empathic, sensitive, caring, family-oriented, spiritual, giving person. Now write down next to the heart your main emotional challenge. In his case, it was anger. You could write down frustration, anxiety, hurt, depressed, sad, underachieving. How do you feel when you get hurt or angry? Draw an arrow down to the legs. On the arrow, write the word gravity over here, gravity. Gravity pulls you down into your body, and your body feels what? He would say, my body felt hot, agitated, tense, like a spring ready to pounce on somebody. If you are writing here a word of depression, you would write down overwhelmed, sad, heavy, lethargic. An event will happen over here, like a sandwich not being given to me at Caesar restaurant. It goes toward my heart feels angry. Gravity pulls me down into my body and I feel agitated, hot, a coil ready to spring. Now, if you stop for a moment and breathe and go like this, and draw an arrow up toward your head. Remember, you're in a loop. You're in an automatic loop of emotional pain, automatic response by going, the anger moment occurs here, goes down into my body, and I feel angry. If you would stop for a moment and realize, be woke, real woke, be awake and conscious that you have an identity above your emotion, rise above the emotional self, draw an arrow up here from the heart to the head, and on this arrow write the word anti-gravity. Now you are able to access your true self. What is your true self? I said to my client, your true self is, I am an empathic, sensitive, caring, family-oriented, spiritual, giving person. When you access that person and you really go there and you absorb that sense of self, go there. What would an empathic, sensitive, caring, family-oriented, giving person say to yourself, your anger self, when you didn't get your sandwich that you wanted? You would say, not the end of the world, chill, bigger picture, you'll get a different sandwich, you'll go home, you'll have something else. But don't take it out on her. This is a way to be able to access your higher self. And the third way to access your bandwidth is a spiritual, meditative mindfulness exercise, where you breathe in. Imagine a wave of relaxation flowing through you. And go to your most beautiful place. My beautiful place is a waterfall at Ein Gedi in Israel. Some people go to an orchard. Some people go to Niagara Falls. Some people go to the Rocky Mountains. Some people go to the Grand Canyon. Some people go to their grandmother's backyard where they grew up. Some people go to a babbling brook or fishing. Go to your beautiful place. How do you feel in your beautiful place? People will say, calm, relaxed, inspired, free, liberated. I say, why are you liberated? The reason why you feel liberated and free and calm in this place is because this place symbolizes your bandwidth, because this place represents your higher self. If you're going to a place of water, that refers to your calm, giving, flowing self, because water represents flowing and giving. So when you see a flowing river or the beach or the waves or a lake and you feel calm there, it's because you feel calm because your inner self, your subconscious self, your soul is intuiting itself in the beach, in the river, in the water, in the lake. And therefore you're seeing your inner self in the lake. The lake has the same proponents, the water has the same proponents and components as your soul does, as your bandwidth does, as your higher self does. So you're seeing your own calmness, your own giving self, your own sensitivity and giving nature, empathic nature in the water. If your beautiful place is a mountain or an overlook or a powerful waterfall, then what you're accessing in yourself when you feel uplifted, energized, powerful in that place, it's because your inner self is intuiting itself in the power of the water, the power of the waterfall, the dynamic nature of the waterfall. That could be accessing your higher self as creative, dynamic, leadership, strong-willed. That's your inner self intuiting itself in that beautiful place where you feel energized, free, and alive. And when you go to your higher self through this spiritual dimension, this meditation, this mindfulness, by going to your higher self, your beautiful place, accessing it, your true self is present. That's reality. That's the Z dimension. That's the bandwidth dimension. And so you can access it going to this beautiful place. That's your bandwidth. When you're in that place, you cannot make a mistake. You will not be angry when you are a creative leadership person, a person who's a leader, who's a waterfall person, who's Niagara Falls, who's Rocky Mountain, is going to be showing leadership by showing sensitivity and calm to the person who's not being able to give me a sandwich at 9 o'clock or 10 to 9 at Caesar's restaurant. If I am sensitive and warm and giving, I'll show compassion, say, okay, no problem. Have a good night. I'll find it somewhere else. To review, I can access my bandwidth in 3 ways. XY dimension going to the bandwidth, my higher self. 2, my wheel of strengths, writing out my statement and writing it here in my mind self, my conscious self, my soul self, my essence self, my reality self in here and go anti-gravity. Or 3, I can access it by going to my beautiful place, accessing my higher self, my meditative spiritual self, my emotionally uplifted self, put it here, look down at my anger and say, chill, it's going to be okay. In all 3 cases, you can use these 3 techniques to get a hold of yourself, to overcome anger. And this is a system of anger management. So many people tell us, well, get a tougher skin, rise above it, you can do it, stop being that way. Well, you can say that, but those are easy words. As people say, easier said than done. You have to apply a system of self-management. And this system allows you to rise above, to get into your bandwidth, to go to your reality dimension, to go to your Z dimension, to go to your anti-gravity self and overcome anger, negativity, fear, anxiety, depression, sadness. And in this way, you can talk yourself out of a bad mood, talk yourself out of anger and depression in most cases, and be able to rise above it by going to the bandwidth, which is getting woke, not the political woke, but getting woke, getting awakened to your true self.